Queen Zira was the most powerful ruler the galaxy had ever known. A queen whose name alone could silence rebellions and stop wars, because she ruled not with chaos but with strict order and unstoppable strength. And under her command thousands of worlds lived in fear and stability at the same time. Yet despite all her power, there was one pain that no army could fix. Because her two daughters were missing, stolen years ago during a secret attack on her royal convoy. And from that moment the queen who once watched stars burn now spent her nights staring into empty space, haunted by silence where her children's voices should have been. And so she began a search that shook the universe, tearing apart pirate clans, forcing ancient species to speak forgotten truths, and scanning planets no one had cared about for centuries, until entire civilizations collapsed simply because they stood in her way. And still she found nothing, not even a shadow. Until one day a weak and strange signal appeared from a small blue planet far from any galactic power. A world called Earth, a place listed as unimportant, underdeveloped and harmless, yet the signal carried the unique energy of her daughters. And when Queen Zira saw it, her heart filled with rage and fear at the same time. Because if her children were there, then someone had hidden them among fragile beings who did not understand what they were protecting. And so without mercy or delay she ordered her fleets to move. And the sky above Earth soon split open as massive alien ships arrived like dark gods, blocking the sun and shaking the planet's gravity, while humans below watched in terror as satellites failed, power grids collapsed, and oceans trembled. And governments tried to respond but found themselves helpless against technology far beyond their reach. Yet humanity did not surrender easily, because human warships rose into space knowing they could not win. Pilots launched knowing they would die, and commanders gave orders with steady voices even as hope vanished. And space became a graveyard of burning metal as human ships were cut apart by alien weapons that glowed like stars. And millions of people cried, prayed, and held each other, believing the end had come, but then something strange happened. Because instead of destroying the planet completely, the alien attack stopped. And from the largest ship descended Queen Zira herself, landing in a ruined city that had already suffered years of hardship. And she walked through broken streets expecting to find her daughters imprisoned, crying or used as weapons, yet what she found broke every belief she had ever held. Because sitting on a cracked sidewalk were two glowing alien girls, alive and calm, sharing simple food and laughter with a tired human man who looked at them with gentle eyes. And in that moment the ruler of the galaxy felt confusion for the first time in her life, because her daughters were not afraid, not harmed, and not begging to be rescued, but instead looked peaceful, and the human beside them did not bow or run when he saw the queen, but stayed where he was, as if protecting them with nothing but his body and will. And as Queen Zira stared at this scene, the truth began to sink in that this weak world she had come to crush had somehow done what the galaxy could not, because it had kept her children alive not with power or fear, but with kindness. And the silence of that ruined street became heavier than any battlefield, marking the moment when the fate of Earth, the galaxy, and humanity itself quietly changed forever. Elias Carter was a man who had known loss more deeply than most, a human who had seen his family torn apart when the first alien scouts arrived years ago, leaving cities burning and lives shattered. And since then he had chosen not to fight with weapons or fleets, but to survive in the ruins, helping the few who remained, repairing broken water systems, rescuing children trapped in debris, and living quietly among the destruction that humanity had endured, until one night he stumbled upon two strange, glowing girls hiding in a dark alley, frightened and weak. And without hesitation he took them in, offering food, shelter, and protection, never asking who they were or where they had come from, simply treating them as children who needed care, giving them names, teaching them words, showing them the small joys of life that the world had almost stolen, fixing a broken toy drone into a tiny mechanical bird for their amusement, sharing stories of stars and earth, and in this quiet, fragile world they called him Uncle Eli, trusting him completely, and for years this small bond grew, hidden from the eyes of the universe, while Queen Zira, far away, continued her relentless search across galaxies, unaware that her daughters were alive and safe under human care, until the moment when she finally arrived on Earth, her power bending the ground beneath her as her massive ships cast shadows over the cities, while human defenders scattered, terrified, knowing that even their strongest weapons could not match the energy and technology she commanded. Yet Elias did not run, and when Queen Zira's voice shook the ruins with authority, demanding her children, he stood firm, shielding the girls, looking up at a being capable of destroying the world with a gesture, and simply saying no, that they were safe with him, and that no threat would move him because the children were not pawns or tools. They were beings who had learned kindness, joy, and trust from him, and even as she raised her hand, energy crackling with the potential to erase him in an instant, the girls screamed, their voices full of fear and defiance, shouting for her to stop, to see that he was their protector. And in that instant, Queen Zira faltered, her immense power clashing with the unexpected emotion of love and loyalty that bound the human to her daughters. And Elias spoke again, his voice trembling but filled with unwavering resolve, explaining that the girls had known only kindness with him, that he had given them safety, teaching them trust and warmth that even the greatest empires could not offer, and that if she wanted them, she would have to go through him, a small, fragile human who had no fleets, no weapons, only courage and determination, and that unexpected act of defiance, so simple yet so impossible to ignore, shifted the balance of the moment. Because while the queen stood frozen by the weight of emotion, ancient enemies of the Dominion appeared from hyperspace, lurking in the shadows, following her movements, ready to strike, and suddenly Earth became the center of a galactic war, with enemy fleets clashing above the planet, space filled with fire and explosions as alien ships tore through each other, while human forces, though hopelessly small, fought with everything they had, using ingenuity, strategy, and courage to survive against impossible odds. And Queen Zira realized that the world she had intended to destroy was now in grave danger, that her daughters clung to the human who had kept them safe, and that the outcome of this sudden war could determine whether they lived or died. And as Elias looked up at her, eyes full of hope, fear, and unshakable resolve, he begged her to help, to protect not just her daughters but the human world that had nurtured them. And in that moment, the queen understood that raw power alone could not protect what was truly precious, that sometimes courage and loyalty could challenge even the mightiest ruler in the galaxy, and the stage was set for a confrontation where the fate of Earth, her children, and the balance of power across the stars hung on the choices of a single human and a queen whose heart was opening for the first time in centuries, making her reconsider what it meant to rule, to protect, and to love. Queen Zira, for the first time in her life, made a choice that shocked even her own commanders, deciding not to destroy the planet that had hidden her daughters, but to defend it alongside the humans she had come to see with new eyes, ordering her massive fleets into a protective formation around Earth while signaling the scattered human ships to take cover behind her shields. And as the enemy fleets, ancient rivals of the Dominion who had waited for this moment, attacked with full fury, space erupted into chaos, with explosions lighting the void like supernovas, ships colliding, weapons tearing through metal and energy shields, while human pilots, small and fragile compared to alien dreadnoughts, flew with reckless bravery, using damaged technology and clever maneuvers to strike at critical points, proving that ingenuity and courage could challenge even the most advanced foes. And among them, Elias Carter moved like a strategist, using old Earth satellites and leftover alien devices to create a trap, manipulating gravity fields and energy flows to pull enemy ships into collisions, a plan that should have been impossible but worked because of human creativity, patience, and sheer determination. And while the battle raged in orbit, Queen Zira personally engaged the most dangerous enemy vessels, her energy weapons slicing through enemy armor, while her daughters watched from a safe distance, their glowing forms reflecting the power of their heritage and the love they had learned from the human who protected them. And as the fight reached its peak, the enemy unleashed a planet killer aimed directly at Earth, a weapon capable of ending life instantly. And without hesitation, Queen Zira threw herself into its path, using every last ounce of her strength and energy to divert the blast, shielding the planet with her body and her will, and the resulting explosion engulfed her flagship, filling space with fire, debris, and fear, leaving humans and allies alike thinking she had perished. Yet moments later, she emerged from the destruction, wounded and weakened, but alive, her power holding back the devastating weapon just enough to save Earth. And as the enemy fleets realized their plan had failed, they retreated, leaving the battlefield littered with the wreckage of both alien and human ships. And in the silent aftermath, Earth survivors looked up at the scarred sky, breathing in relief and awe, knowing they had witnessed courage beyond imagining. While the Queen collapsed to the ground in the very street where she had first seen her daughters, exhausted, burned, and humbled by the resilience of the humans she had underestimated. And her daughters ran into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time, clinging to her as if nothing in the universe could hurt them now, while Elias knelt beside them, battered but proud, having faced impossible odds and shown that humanity's strength lay not in numbers or technology, but in courage, loyalty, and the unwillingness to surrender to fear. And as the Queen looked around at the broken buildings, the surviving humans, and the determination etched on every face, she realized the truth that had eluded her for centuries. These fragile beings, so small and insignificant by galactic standards, had fought with fire in their hearts, protected the vulnerable, and stood against gods without flinching. And for the first time, Queen Zira bowed, not in defeat but in respect, acknowledging that humanity, in its imperfection, had achieved what even the greatest empire could not, and that the bonds of trust, love, and sacrifice had reshaped the fate of her daughters, the planet, and perhaps the galaxy itself, leaving a legacy that would be remembered across stars and worlds. A tale of courage and unity, of humans who dared to challenge the impossible, and a queen who learned that power alone was not enough to protect what mattered most, and that sometimes the smallest, weakest beings could inspire the greatest acts of heroism, proving that humanity's fire could not be extinguished, and that from the ruins of battle, hope in life could rise stronger than any weapon, leaving the world forever changed, and in the eyes of two alien princesses, and the human who had protected them, the future shimmered with possibility, love, and the promise that even among stars, humanity could stand unbroken.